One of the things I've been working on in therapy for a very long time, much to my therapist's dismay, I think, is how no matter what is happening in my life, I have lived and live in a very scarcity and fear-based mindset. And I do everything out of the fear that I will lose it all. So, if my practice has grown, I'm still panicked that tomorrow everything will end. If my content's doing well, but I'm really tired and I'm struggling posting content, in my mind, the motivator is fear. And that's not a great way to go through life, but it is how I have survived. I say to a lot of clients, in my experience, people tend to have one of two ways of surviving difficult childhoods. And in my experience, it's often the overdoers, the overachievers, the busyaholic, workaholic, and that can go into the trauma types, right? Or those who shut down and kind of can't function and collapse. And at the end of the day, I always say I would choose overdoing because at least I know that I will make my rent, if that makes sense. But the truth is that I feel and struggle with a lot of collapse too, which we all do. But when I'm in the collapse, this part puts a lot of shame on the collapse, the depressed, the struggling, the traumatized part. So they both exist. It's just that overarchingly, people in my experience tend to not, intermittently, but if you stood back and you looked at the course of their life, they've either overdone it or they're struggling and they're like in 20 years of they can't make decisions or they can't leave a marriage, they can't find a career, they can't change their patterns. And it's just a frozenness. They're just different. But like I'm saying, I think for myself, I experience a lot of that frozenness and collapse too. It's just that the other strategy pushes me out of that more often than not, even when I don't feel good, because there's so much fear and survival response. So it's like living in a very hypervigilant driven fear response. And so these are the 5 things that I think you might want to think about if you're thinking, oh, maybe I do this, and we'll talk a little bit about what to do at the end. Number 1, you're always panicked. You're always anxious. You're always hypervigilant. It's like I'm saying, it's like the world is burning all of the time. And frankly, right now, it kind of feels like that. I'm also noticing an extreme, this is like a little sideline here, a lot of dissociation, detachment right now from what's happening in the world, in our lives, and what's been happening for the last several years. And it's kind of like everyone is kind of walking around a bit numb and depressed and dissociated. Even if they're manifesting that and dealing with that, I should say dealing with that through overworking to avoid feeling that, there's a numbness happening. But the point is you don't feel any of that because everything is like, I always say you're treading water as fast as you can. Like that's how you feel. And that doesn't stop no matter what. Number 2, and that this aligns, is no matter what is happening in your life, it feels like it's never enough. So if I can make rent, now before that might have been like, oh my God, I can pay my own rent. Now it's like, well, all I can do is pay my own rent. Now, unless you're independently wealthy, most of us are working to survive. We don't have massive savings and lots of investments. I mean, people do, but many of us don't have the ability to stop working. And so I'm really talking about those of us who don't have, like, I don't have an inheritance, I don't have family, no one's leaving me anything. But so there's a reality to the fact that what I have is not enough. I'm supporting 4 children, right? So mostly 90%. And so I don't have the luxury. So, but no matter what, I never feel the sense of accomplishment. It's never enough. It's always like, yeah, I'm here, but now I'm over there. Now I'm here, I need to get over there. So you're never enough. It's never enough. Number 3, exhaustion is normal. So being chronically fatigued, which we know that autoimmune disease and all types of chronic illness tend to accompany those of us who have childhood trauma. So we might have a different, reason why we're going through it, but there's a chronic level of not feeling well, and it is exhausted by your burning out of your nervous system, your hormones, all of that. And so you just walk around feeling chronically tired. Also, you might not sleep well, you might have insomnia, you have too much caffeine, we're kind of like pushing it. Number 4, you use constant self-blame and toxic shame to motivate. perfectionism, self-blame. So it's not just, oh, there's a scarcity. It's like, and you're a loser, or what's wrong with you? Or, it's like this very shame-based and critical voice that drives you. It's not coming from a place of ideally a loving, nurturing inner parent that says, you can do this. I believe in you. It's like, you're such a loser. What is wrong with you? Get off the couch and go make a video, things like that, or go to work, or go do your, notes, or go file the tax documents, whatever. By the way, I really struggled with that this year. In California, we had late filing in October. Okay, and lastly, that your reality doesn't match up and you cannot find any real gratitude. It's really difficult. It's like I'm saying, no matter what the reality is, in your mind, you don't see it. And it's really hard for you to be in the present without the hypervigilance and to say like, okay, I might need to get over there, but look how far I've come. It's almost like that doesn't exist. You're just always swimming as fast as you can. And the problem with all of this is that, and I'm a prime example, is that it will play out in your body. You will become ill or sick or struggle with issues, no matter what it is. You will pay a price. Your relationships will crack. You might end up actually not managing your emotions well and losing your job for that reason, or whatever it is. You lose the amount of resources to be the best version of yourself because so much of the way you function is focused and funneled into that fear response. So what can you do? Obviously, I'm going to say things like therapy, but I know that's also expensive and time consuming, but I really do believe that, or in addition to therapy, doing workbooks and courses and podcasts, listening to those and reading books, just trying to understand, at least even if you're aware of it, but you can't change it yet, you know that you have a place you need to work towards, right? So awareness, trauma processing, or strategies, looking at your physical health. Sleep, I think, is the number one issue for our mental health. I do believe this. Exercise. I have not exercised for the last month and I don't feel well. And I was going to start again last week and then I got this burn and it hurts. My legs really hurt. I mentioned in the last video, I got 2nd-degree burns on my legs because I was trying to make TikTok mashed potatoes that were fried and dropped the water in the sink and it bounced up. My point is, my head wasn't in the game. I was in a kind of trauma thing, but one more reason, now I'm not doing it and I can feel it. So sleep, exercise, seeing your doctors, taking care of things like dental appointments, checkups, mammograms, all the things that we are, when we're living in fear, we don't make time and space for. And that neglecting of ourselves is one thing that so many of us learn to do in childhood, and we act that out in our adult lives. Of course, grounding techniques, you can Google these things. It's basically a way to kind of get yourself in the present, to, look at things you see, hear, taste, smell, all that kind of stuff. Just Google grounding techniques, or I probably have some videos on it here somewhere. Nervous system regulation techniques, mindfulness, yoga, breathing, all the things that we're like, oh God, don't tell me to breathe again. But really, it is about that. And the last part is having compassion for yourself. I will not ever willingly let go. It's too risky, at least right now, much to my therapist's dismay, of my fear. I'm trying to work on it, but without it, I worry because it was a strategy that I won't make it. Like I'll end up losing everything. Both of my parents basically had been intermittently successful and then lost everything. I mean, literally. And then my father left this world when that happened at the worst part of his life in his 50s. I think I'm actually pretty close to the same age he was. And my mom at 50 lost her entire business and never really worked again. And so, I don't see myself in them in that regard, but I have the experience of it and I'm terrified of it. I don't have family, like I said. I don't have inheritance. I don't have siblings. Like I just have my kids. I don't really expect them to take care of me. Although, at some point I would hope they would at least pop in and, bring me food if I was somewhere. My point is that I don't want that burden for them because I've had the burden of caring for a parent. And yet the reality is I can't let go of that fear because I don't have other options, right? And so you may not either. You may have the options, but still not be able to not live in that. So I'm not implying that also just because you have financial security that you don't have this response, because you absolutely may. And frankly, compared to where I could be in life, I'm good. I'm doing fine. So I can't act like I'm not going to make my rent tomorrow because I know I'm going to. But there was a time when I didn't know that I would. And if I, like I said, stopped working, just like you, like most of us, that would be an issue. So anyway, the point is, no matter where you are, some things are going to make it worse, obviously. But that this response is very common in childhoods where we had to be scanning for threat and detecting a parent's mood and mind and getting our needs met or not. This would be really common, especially in those of us who had more anxious or disorganized kind of parents. It could also be if there was a real neglect and not enough food and shelter and care, that you also lived in fear of your needs met. So any of those places where there's too much or too little can create the heart of these wounds. So hope that was helpful. Please stay safe and well, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.